So, Sean, let's talk predictions because we made some. We made
Yeah.
our predictions, and you can find all of the staff's predictions at irishbreakdown.com. We all made predictions. We obviously not a shocker. We all picked Notre Dame to win this game. Some of us by larger margins than others. But I think, Sean, to me, when I look at this game, I looked at it from a standpoint of, I think you made a comment earlier. I made a prediction. We both picked Notre Dame to win. I predicted that Notre Dame would win this game 34-13, which isn't an incredibly wide margin. It does cover the spread, but I kind of looked at it from like you were alluding to this earlier. I don't necessarily anticipate the offense coming out rocking and rolling right away. I hope it does, but there's a lot this team needs to get better at, right? So I kind of look at it as they're going to come out and play hard, but maybe have a couple misses, couple mistakes, but they're going to eventually get rolling in the first half, and I think it's going to be convincing. And then my 34-13 also includes, I think Marshall's going to score a touchdown late. I do think, barring this, the defense having an emotional letdown, I think this defense is going to shut Marshall down. I'm not impressed with their quarterback. I think their offensive line, if the Notre Dame defensive line can't dominate this game, it's going to be a long year. It's going to be a really long year. And, so it's a big week for Al Washington, too. We're not talking a lot about that. We're talking about Marcus Freeman, but Al Washington's unit was expected to be arguably the best part of this football team, and they did not show up and play like that on Saturday against Ohio State. So I went 34-13 with a late score by Marshall, but Notre Dame still covers. We'll dive into specifically why we picked that afterwards, but just kind of, Sean, just your prediction and then just a little bit about what went into that prediction.
Yeah, I just said it, and I agree with you, about the start not being as fast as we would want or Notre Dame would want. My prediction was 44-17, covering the spread as well. I also have Marshall scoring some points late, but I look for a couple of contributions in the scoring tally from the defense. That was for me. I think they played well, and I think they take it to the next level and get turnovers this week that lead to points. So
I'll say this, Sean, if Notre Dame can force some turnovers, I could see this thing really getting ugly. The reason I say that is because I think like there's two ways that an offense can gain confidence. One is they go down and score I'll say if Notre Dame goes down and scores in the first drive of the game, I feel like, okay, it's okay. This is going to be a fun day.
Yeah.
I'm not anticipating that, but if like the defense gets a couple early turnovers, especially if one of them turns into points, then I do think it'll end up looking like New Mexico because because then the offense is like, hey guys, we don't have to do this all by ourselves. Yeah. Just calm down, play loose, go do your thing. Defense has our back, right? We're going to be all right. Let's go do this thing. So yeah, I could see something like that, Sean. And so it is going to be interesting. I think the start is going to be very telling about this team. And I'm not predicting it, but if we see it, it's going to tell me a lot about this team to kind of come out and kind of roll back from last week's loss and just come out and play with a little bit of fire and execution. Because I expect the fire, even if they don't score a lot early, if they don't have 21 points in the first quarter, it doesn't mean you're not playing with fire. It just means your execution still needs to get better.
Right.
So I think they're going to come out and play hard. It's just what's the level of execution going to be? I think that's the bigger question for me. And that's partly why I had it a little bit closer than like some of the other scores, Sean. Like I'll just give everybody the rest of the staff's predictions. Vince went 52-17. Sean Stiers went 48-6. Andrew McDonough went 48-20. And then Ryan just went insane and went 55-6. Like he went full like destruction.
Right.
I hope that's the case. And if that's the case, I'll say this: if that's the case, this is going to tell us a lot about this team. But I could see, Sean, and I get your thoughts on this. I could see the defense taking a little bit of a step back this week. Not so much from just from a focus standpoint, just maybe an assignment standpoint, just because they did put so much into stopping Ohio State last week that maybe they have a couple missed assignments or, plays like that. I wouldn't be completely shocked if we saw something like that this week.
Of course, there are a lot of things that can happen. That's why they play the games, and that's why it's college football. But for me, I went the route of 44-17 because I just really am looking forward to, and it's something you touched on. That's going to be one of the funnest parts. And I've been asking all week. I'm just really. I wonder how Al Golden is going to approach a quarterback that's making his second start on this big stage. This is not Norfolk State. This is Notre Dame Stadium, national TV. Like, yo, how does he attack him? Does he sit back or does he go after him early on and try to get them outside of their game? Because they're speed and tempo, but they want to run the ball with those two running backs.
Right.
And
And throw quick game
so
and
quick game and all of
right.
that. So it's
Right.
like, how does Al Golden? I'm interested in how he attacks them
Yeah.
early on. Like, do
Yeah.
you run blitz, get them behind the sticks,
Yeah.
and then say, okay, it's going to be interesting.
Because if you look at Henry Colombi, I mean, he was that way at Texas Tech too. If you
Yeah,
could pressure him, he's going to make mistakes,
yeah,
you know, and it wasn't so much about the environment with him, it was about the pressure. You know, he's played at Texas and Oklahoma and places like that before, but he played it at Texas Tech where, you know, it's just a different animal.
yeah,
You know, but now he's the guy. He was coming off the bench in both of those games, you know, those seasons. He didn't start those seasons as the starting quarterback. Now he's the guy.
yeah,
And he's not a guy with a big arm, as we broke down the last couple of days. He's a really accurate kid, good decision maker. So do you let him get into an early rhythm of getting the ball out quickly and hitting the hitches and the slides, and then they build confidence? You say, hey, look, you can't throw the ball to downfield on us. And if you think you can, your offensive line's not going to have enough time to protect down the field on us. So we're going to come out and be aggressive. That's what I'm hoping we see, because it's like, Marcus, what's the one word Marcus Freeman's probably used more than any other this week in this press conferences? Aggressive.
yes,
Okay, well, we heard the words and I believe them, but now we need to see it. And
right,
it can't just be the offense. It can't just be special teams. It's got to be the defense too. And part of that is, you know, being aggressive with your coverages, you know, still doing things in disguise, you know, maybe you play off and then jump at the snap, you know, because I mean, you saw it in the Marshall game, or no, which game was it? I'm trying to think of which game I was watching last night, where a corner no, it's the Marshall game against Norfolk State, where
yeah,
the guy's playing off and at the snap, he just flies downhill and jumps in front of a hitch pass. I'm like,
yeah.
oh,
That's
okay.
Micah Abraham,
Yeah.
Donnie Abraham's son.
Yeah. Oh, I
Yeah,
didn't know he was Donnie Abraham's son. Oh,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
all both of their corners are got some NFL bloodlines then.
yeah,
You know, it's
yeah,
Stephen Gilmore being Stephon Gilmore's son or
yeah,
brother, excuse me. So yeah, Stephon Gilmore, he's not that old. He's got a kid playing college football. Younger brother, excuse me. But I mean, those are things that you want to see. That's aggressive, you know,
yeah,
be aggressive in the boundary and you know, not that I'm not saying be aggressive like blitz 7 every play. That's not aggressive to me, but have an Isaiah Foskey attacking, you know, making calls up front to let your turn your line loose. I'm curious to see how he's going to be this week. Or does he take sort of a, well, we're playing a team that's not that good. Let's not give him a chance to rip off a big play and a little bit more passive. I hope we don't see that, to be honest with you. I want to see an aggressive game plan in all phases of the game, not just special teams, like Coach Freeman said, and offense, like Coach Freeman said. I want to see a defense too, because uh, look, the defense right now is, as it's been for several years, is right now the best part of this football team.
yeah,
So set the tone, right? Set the tone. If you win the toss and you defer and you start on defense, then set the tone. Go right after them.
right,
You know, and that's how you get to what you said, Sean, of a couple turnovers. You're not going to get you're going to get turnovers if you're just sitting off and letting them catch, unless Marshall just stinks and they put the ball on the ground a ton. I mean, this is the
yeah,
team that turned the ball over a lot last year, and their new quarterback's a guy that the last 2 years has had a pretty high, you know, interception rate when you talk about a per pass basis. So I want to see them be aggressive, and again, it's all part of setting the tone of who this football team is going to be. You know, you're playing an inferior opponent, so let them know
yeah,
that they're inferior and blow them out in the first 2 quarters.
yeah,
And then you can spend the whole second half with Junior in the game, and you can get Tyson Ford in the game or Josh Burnham in the game, Jalen Sneed in the game. And then if they score a little bit, okay, fine. It is what it is. You've already got a big lead. That's what I want to see. And it's got to be all phases of the game, because the defense tomorrow, the defense and the offensive line need to be the tone setters. And if they're not, then I'm gonna get back to being a little bit concerned to be completely honest with you, about the soul of this particular 2022 football team.
Yeah, and we're looking for things, and we're looking at the scoreboard, but more than that, you know, my dad used to tell me, did you learn anything
Mm-hmm.
when I made a mistake? Like, because if you learn something, I don't have to worry about you making the same mistake. And this is going to be a week in a game, a weekend in a game to see if Notre Dame has learned anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Marshall's going to come in with a smaller front and move around
Mm-hmm.
and stunt
Yep.
and blitz off the stunts. And they're going to make you prove that you have gotten better at picking up those movements
Right.
that might be
Why would a team not do
Why
that to
would
Notre
they
Dame?
not?
Like,
Yeah,
if
absolutely.
you aren't doing that and pressing Notre Dame's corners, then you just don't know what you're doing. I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
Like, I'm
Absolutely.
sorry.
You
And if
have to
Notre
do that.
Dame isn't prepared for that, I'm gonna have major concerns about this offense, and I expect them to. I'm not
Yeah.
saying that they're not going to. I expect them
Yeah.
to be prepared for that. But if they're not for some reason or don't have answers, we're gonna be having a very interesting conversation next week. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, and Sean may have to just pull over and get on the post game show on his way home from the game tomorrow. Uh,
If it's a problem like
yeah,
that, yeah.
yeah.
Like I got something to say
Like, I'm
right
gonna be sitting
here
in my
on the
basement,
spot.
all of a sudden Sean's gonna come down the stairs, just like shove me out of the way. Like, I got some stuff I gotta say right now, Drisk. So step aside. I got this. We're
Yeah.
gonna be all right.
And defensively, look, are
Yeah.
you going to get after the quarterback?
Right.
Have you learned? Stop wrestling with people. Make a
Right.
move.
Right.
Either
Right.
go around them with a speed rush or go inside and rip and get to the quarterback. But this dancing, like you're waltzing with tackles and waltzing with offensive linemen, we can't have that. We
Yeah.
can't have that. Short passing game. That's what they're going to employ.
Yeah. And
Guess
run
what,
game.
linebackers?
Run, quick
You got
game.
to tackle. You got to
Run,
run and
quick
tackle.
game. Run,
Absolutely.
quick game. Run,
Absolutely.
quick game. That's who they are.
That's it.
They attempted one pass last week over 20 yards. If they weren't willing to do that against Norfolk State, right? I mean, there's a reason for that, Sean. And it's very interesting. It's very telling, like you said, about this. And here's the other thing too. Talking about learning something. Some of those cats on the D line got a little bit humbled last week, right?
Heck
I
yeah.
mean, Isaiah
Heck yeah.
Foskey came to the offseason talking about I came back to win a national championship. Okay, well, you're on a big stage and a chance to do that, and you got outplayed, right? Jason Adamiola, we're the baddest MFers, in college football. Okay, well, if you're going to say that, you got to
You got to
play
back it
better.
up.
Riley Mills talking about this week, how he thinks his defense can be, elite and all. Okay, cool, but you got to go show me something. I mean, they've all
Right.
had some words to say, and I like that. I'm not calling those guys out. I'm not saying, oh, you guys maybe keep your mouth shut next time. No, I want you to keep talking like that, but I just want you to go back it up. And that's my thing is I'm not one of those people who's just like, I just, hey, we're just out here to do our best. No, screw that. Be yourself. And
Yeah.
if you're someone who feels like I'm the baddest dude out here and you want to tell people that, that's cool. But you better go out and show it. You better
Go
go back
show
it
it.
up. And
Absolutely.
and that's my thing is that unit to me tomorrow, Sean, if they don't play ticked off, we're going to have some serious conversations after this because you guys have run your mouths a lot. And again, I'm okay with that. If I was playing at Notre Dame when I was 18, 19, 20, you better darn sure believe social media would have talked a lot about the things that I was saying because that's just how I was. I'm okay with that, but you better go back it up. And that kind of goes back to what you've been saying really since we started talking about this prediction today is the turnovers.
Yeah.
Well, where's that going to start? It has to start up front. And I have a feeling that's what you're envisioning too is the defensive line just coming out and harassing Marshall. It may be a pick six by a corner, but it's going to be because the quarterback was pulling a Popke from unnecessary roughness, like blow the whistle, just throwing the ball away. You know what I mean? Because he doesn't want to get hit. And that's what I want to see. It's got to start up front. And that was expected to be the strength of this team, man, and it wasn't last week.
Yeah, do to others as they do unto you. That's not the exact quote, but I switched it up for this purpose. If everybody else is going to take away your left hand and force you to play right-handed, then do the same thing to them.
Right.
If they love the short passing game, then bring your DBs up, take it away, bump them, knock off the timing, and shut down the run game.
Mm-hmm.
And if they catch the ball, get them on the ground immediately.
Yep.
Go to the next play. That's how we play.
Yep.
Aggressive. Safeties, creep up. Like, yo, we're fast enough to run with you. We're getting involved in this mid-range game, taking that away, and we're going to take away the run game. We're going to be
Mm-hmm.
nosy. We're going to come
Mm-hmm.
downhill, get you behind the sticks, and force you to go to third and long, and then we're going to come after Columbia. That's what we're going to do. We're going to create havoc and turnovers. We dare you to beat us. The
Yeah.
same attitude Ohio State had with you, have the same attitude.
Right.
We dare you to throw the ball.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, that at the end of the day, that's the biggest thing that I want to see from this team. And it's not even a prediction, Sean. I need to see it. I'm not predicting it. I need to see it, right? I need to see this team play, fly around to the ball, play hard. And that's not a question for me. I think they did play hard last week. At no point in time did I question, boy, this team, like you and I were talking earlier today before the show, and it was like that team was ready to play against Ohio State.
Yeah.
They weren't, the environment didn't get to them. The moment didn't get to them. It wasn't any of those things. It was, we didn't execute well. We didn't play with the necessary technique. And I was talking to a buddy last night, and he was like, you know, the game plan against Ohio State was a mistake. And I said, okay, I understand. And to a degree, I don't disagree with you. I wanted to see more aggressiveness. But the thing I said to him is, even though we somewhat agree, the reality is you had 3 plays in the second half that were designed and carried out in a way that if you just hit it, it's a touchdown. I mean, if they can protect Tyler Buckner and Tyler Buckner's able to put that ball on Lorenzo Styles, it's 17-7. Not too many series in the third quarter. I believe it was still, I'd have to go look, but I believe it was still 10-7. And they ran a similar play this time with Braden Lindsey, and he smoked a dude. But what happened is Tyler never got to, he got to the top of his drop and he was hit.
It was hit.
So my point is, even with that problem, you still had a chance to be up 2-3 scores on Ohio State before they got rolling. And to me, that's frustrating as heck, but also encouraging, because if this team does start executing and does start hitting those plays, even with the game plan I didn't like, they should have beat Ohio State. Even with the game plan I didn't like. And so there's no moral victories from last week. There's no, you know, but you got to be able to watch that game and say that game was different, because we're all coming out of that game like thinking, man, you should have won that game. I can't believe you didn't win that game. When was the last time that Notre Dame went into an environment like that, in a situation like that, and was like, we played like crap and still could have and should have won? Right? Not like Miami, like, oh, gee, if Brandon hits that one pass, they would have rolled, but you ended up losing by 33. It was a game where in the second half, you're like, dude, you had multiple chances to go up 10, 17 points, and you missed. It was an execution thing. It was a fundamentals thing. It wasn't this team wasn't ready for the moment. Same thing in the bowl game. That team came out ready to play, which is why they were up 3 touchdowns before, in the second quarter.
Yeah.
But you got to finish, and that's the big thing is, can this team finish? Can they finish off drives? Can they finish off quarters? Can they finish off halves? Can they finish off games? And that's where I feel like circling back as we wrap this up, the beginning, sort of my monologue at the beginning was, we're going to learn about this football team because, you know, how do you kind of evolve as a team? How do you come out in a game against a team like this? You get that first win, but when does it set in, right? When do you finally say, okay, enough is enough, and we're going to take that next step? And that's what I want to see from this team. And it doesn't have anything to do with Marshall. That's to do with Notre Dame. Marshall just hopefully is the team that has to suffer because of it. You're the team that they woke up against. And to me, those are the parts of this team that are going to tell us a lot. You know, I mean, again, we've seen it before. You know, we've seen it with other teams, Ohio State, you know, when they finally turned the corner against, you know, under Urban Meyer. I mean, they were good Urban Meyer's first couple years, Sean, but I mean, if we're being honest, they lost most of the big games they played in his first couple years.
That's
if
true.
We're being honest. I mean, you know, his first year they went 12-0, but Michigan was, you know, an 8-5 team that year. Their other big win that year was a Nebraska team that finished, you know, 10-4. I think it was a Bo Pelini Nebraska team. They didn't play anybody good because remember, they weren't allowed to play in the postseason that year.
Right.
And then in 2013, they went out and they beat Wisconsin. It was just okay. They beat Michigan 42-41. And again, that was not a very good Michigan team. They beat a 7-6 Michigan team by 1 point. Then they got smacked in the Big Ten title game by Michigan State. And then they got lost to Orange Bowl to Clemson. That's what Urban Meyer's first 2 years were. So yeah, 24-2, but who'd they beat the first 2 years? They lost to really the only 2 really good teams that they played. And then you come out in 2014, the year they won a title, and early in the year, they get smacked in the mouth by Virginia Tech, a not very good Virginia Tech team. And then later that year, you kind of started to see that Ohio State team just slowly start putting it together. And then sort of the coming out party was, I think the Michigan State game is the one for me.
Yeah.
That was a coming out party because like I know the final score was what was like 49-37, something like that, Sean.
Yeah.
But if you go back and watch that game, that was one where I thought that they just it wasn't that close, in my opinion. And it was the game where Ohio State kind of finally woke up a little bit. And you're like, okay. I mean, it was 42. Yeah, I'm looking. It was 42-24, then 49-31. Michigan State scored late. That was the game where you're like, uh-oh, the light went off.
The light went off.
And after that, it's like, okay, their teams are in trouble.
That was on the road, too. That was at Michigan State.
And I think they were ranked 5th at the time, 8th at the time. Michigan State was ranked 8th at the time.
Yeah.
So, you've seen it before. You saw it with Alabama really in 2009, in my opinion. I think we saw that with Bama the year that they won the title. I think you just there comes a time in a game where the light goes off and you're like, you know what? We're a pretty good football team, and, I think because, like, you got to remember 2008, Bama was a pretty good football team, but they ended the season very much in the same fashion that Ohio State ended in 2013.
Yeah.
And that was with back-to-back losses against really the 2 best teams that they played. Florida smacked them pretty good in the SEC title game, and then Utah smacked them in the Sugar Bowl. Well, then you come out the next year in 2009, and Alabama's kind of similar, beat an okay Virginia Tech team, beat an okay Ole Miss team, beat South Carolina, who's okay, beat LSU that year, was just kind of okay.
Yep.
Their coming out party was the SEC title game against a team that had kind of dominated the SEC for the previous 5 years. I mean, Florida was that team at the time, and it was a Tim Tebow team, and it was an undefeated Florida team, defending national champs, and Alabama took it to them. That was the breakout party where that team finally was, you know what? We are this good. We are not just out talenting people, because the SEC wasn't that good back then, in my opinion. It really wasn't. The teams were just kind of okay. And then obviously that started their role. And I'm not saying Notre Dame's going to win the next 7 of the next 12 national titles, but I'm just saying is there does come a game under any head coach where your team assumes its identity, good or bad. And that's what we're going to learn about Notre Dame is, when is that game going to be? Is it going to be this year? Is it going to be tomorrow? Is it going to be in a month? Is it going to be in 2 months? But it starts to show, right, against teams like this. And then it really comes into full fruition, like against BYU or Clemson or something like that. You know what I mean? But you start to see the signs. And in 2008-9, you can start to see the signs with Bama before they really kick the door down in the SEC title game. With Ohio State, you started to see the signs in 2014 before they finally kicked the door down. We're like, uh-oh, this team is getting close to really getting to that next level. And then bam. And then, of course, a month later, they beat Wisconsin 59-0, a good Wisconsin team 59-0 in the Big Ten title game, and then just took it to Bama in the second half of that game, and then, of course, went and destroyed Oregon. So the light goes on at some point in time, but it slowly starts to build. It's not like you're just mediocre. Bam, you beat Florida in the SEC title game. Well, you had to get to the SEC title game, so clearly you started showing yourself before, but it was that game. So we need to start seeing those steps to Notre Dame on Saturday where those things get defined. And that's what I'm curious to see.